looking to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Hello and welcome to ASEAN in Focus. I'm Maricar Velasco delivering to you the latest news in and around the ASEAN region. And now to the news. The number of people injured in the magnitude 6.1 earthquake that jolted parts of Luzon on Monday has climbed to 86. In its 6 a.m. update Wednesday, the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, or NDRRMC, said the number of dead is still at 16 and the missing at 14. All these figures are from Region 3 alone and are still subject to validation according to the agency. Meanwhile, families affected by the earthquake has now reached 358 families, or 1,938 persons residing in 7 cities and municipalities, also in Region 3. Of these, 245 families, or 1,271 individuals, are now being aided in 4 evacuation centers, while another 108 families are being assisted outside of evacuation centers. Also, the NDRRMC reported that 80 structures and buildings suffered varying degrees of damage in Region 3 and the National Capital Region. A total of 67 houses were reported damaged in Bataan and Pampanga, 54 of which were wrecked and the remaining 13 partially damaged. The Provincial Legislative Board on Tuesday declared Pampanga under a state of calamity to enable the province and the people to immediately rebuild structures damaged by the 6.1 magnitude earthquake that hit some parts of Luzon Monday. The tremor, which struck at 5:11 p.m., has so far claimed 11 lives, damaged at least 10 churches, and caused cracks in some roads that include the Lahar Catchment FBR Mega Dike. Vice Governor Dennis Pineda said the actual extent of the damages on public infrastructures and private properties are still being assessed. Pineda, Vice Chair of the Pampanga Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, said he also asked the mayors of Apalit, Santo Tomas, and Guagua to order the temporary closure of Chuzon supermarket branches in their respective municipalities to give way for structural assessments, with people's safety being the priority. The Chuzon branch in Porac, which was 4-story high, collapsed shortly after the tremor. Pineda, who supervised the rescue operations at the site until 5 a.m. Tuesday, said rescuers have retrieved bodies of dead workers and rescued others who sustained injuries and were brought to hospitals for treatment. The Department of Transportation and the Clark International Airport Corp, or CIAC, announced that Clark International Airport will resume operations at 4 p.m. Wednesday, less than 48 hours after damages at the terminal building caused by an earthquake that struck Luzon Monday were repaired. CIAC President Jaime Melo said Clark Airport is business as usual, from counters to manifest to boarding gates. The clearing operations and repairs immediately started Tuesday morning inside the pre-departure area after a huge portion of its ceiling collapsed. Melo added a reminder for the riding public to kindly check or coordinate with their respective airlines for confirmation of their flight schedules via Clark beginning April 24. Power, flight information systems, and CCTVs have been fully restored in time for the resumption of flights. On Tuesday evening, cargo carriers FedEx and UPS already serviced flights via Clark, also an indication of the soundness of the airport's runway. Around 10 people were reported injured in eastern Visayas following the magnitude 6.5 earthquake that rocked San Julian, eastern Samar Tuesday. These figures, however, are still for validation, the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council said in its 6 a.m. update Wednesday. The update, signed and released by NDRRMC Executive Director Ricardo Halad, said that 35 buildings and structures were damaged in San Julian, eastern Samar. Also, the provinces of eastern Samar and northern Samar have experienced power interruptions due to the earthquake. A total of 8 schools were damaged by the 6.5 magnitude earthquake which hit San Julian, Eastern Samar on Tuesday, the Department of Education reported. In a partial situation report released late Tuesday, DepEd said 8 schools in Borongan and Tacloban were impaired due to the earthquake. These are Maipangdan National High School in Borongan City and Antonio Balmes National High School, Bayanihan Elementary School, Cirilio Montejo National High School, Nulatula Elementary School, Scan National High School, Tigbao Diit Central School, VG National High School, all in Tacloban City. Most of them had cracked ceilings, floors and walls, broken glass windows and other minor damages. The DepEd said it has already coordinated with the Disaster Risk Reduction Management focal persons of affected regions and divisions for the field situations and reports on infrastructure and non-infrastructure damages. More than 50 people were feared dead after a landslide in northern Myanmar engulfed jade miners while they were sleeping, local police Tuesday said, the latest deadly accident in a notoriously dangerous industry. Dozens die each year in landslides caused by jade mining, a poorly regulated industry rife with corruption and sandwiched between the country's borders with China and India. Local police described the freak accident in Kachin State on Monday night so big it created a huge mud lake that buried the miners as well as some 40 vehicles. A duty officer from Hapkant Township Police told media 54 people are missing in the mud. He adds there's no way the missing could have survived. Only 2 bodies had been recovered so far. The Ministry of Information confirmed the accident and number of missing, adding that the area was mined by Myanmar Thura Gems and Shwe Nagar Kang companies. Myanmar Thura Gems Director Hilaso U told media by phone he was on his way to the site and had no further details. Local media shared images, unverified by the media, that showed that walls of a mine stretching vertically a couple of 100 meters above a vast pool of mud, revealing only the tops of the 2 yellow excavation vehicles. Hundreds of onlookers gathered nearby, staring at the site and taking photos with their phones. When we come back, our resident ASEAN resource person, Dr. Carlos Tabunda Jr., joins us to interview our guest for today.
Visiting the Philippines, Manila or Quezon City is a popular destination. But oftentimes the hustle and bustle of the city can be more stressful on your vacation. So when you feel the need to reconnect to nature or relax again, there's a beautiful oasis just outside of the city called the Garden at Ciudad de Victoria. That you can see here include hydrangea, snapdragon, and stargazers. They're truly beautiful. The gardens at Ciudad de Victoria are so peaceful, tranquil, and beautiful that it's become a haven for young couples and a very popular venue for engagement photos. The next time you want an escape from the big city, the garden at Ciudad de Victoria is a wonderful place to visit.
Welcome back to ASEAN in Focus. I'm Kaloy Tabunda from the New Era University ASEAN Studies Center. And today in ASEAN in Focus, we're very lucky to have with us Professor J. Batong Bakal, the Associate Professor of the UP College of Law and the Director of the UP Institute for Maritime Affairs and Law of the Sea. We'll talk about the different issues, the current issues now surrounding the South China Sea.
Yes.
Welcome to the show, Professor
Thank
J.
you, Kaloy. Thank you for having me.
First question, direct question. There have been reports lately of giant clams being harvested along Scarborough Shoal.
Yes.
And these are reportedly harvested by Chinese fishermen. So what are the implications of this activity?
Well, this is rather serious because the giant clam harvesting is very destructive, no? Sinisira niya yung mga bahura, the coral itself is being destroyed just for these clams to be taken out. So this actually is should be a major concern for us because if that reef is destroyed, then that's an entire fishery that's gone. Now, the other thing there is that this seems to indicate some kind of bad faith on the part of China because we have been told before, since 2016, that supposedly the purpose of their being there was to protect the inner part of the shoal. And instead, we've seen that the China Coast Guard is even guarding the operations of these destructive clam harvesters.
I remember one of the major reasons why we raised that case in the PCA is because of the giant clam harvesting.
Yes,
and they
actually.
said to continue this operation.
When we tried to stop this giant clam harvesting in 2012, that is what directly led to the confrontation and eventually the case. And so now it's still happening. So we have to ask the question, no? So what for are we having this good relationship with China? What for is all of these tacit agreements supposedly? No? We're allowed to fish outside. And yun pala, kaya outside lang, it's because they don't want us to see what's going on inside.
So, anong implications ito sa, of course, you have the sovereignty issue.
Yes.
So, ano ba ito?
Very serious because ibig nito sabihin, even if we have negotiations with China, even if we manage to settle the dispute with them, and even if we were successful in these negotiations, wala na talagang, there's nothing to
So,
get
everything is being done in bad faith.
Yes, it's bad faith really. That is the most serious issue here.
Okay. So, what can you say about the government's response to
Well, the
to these
government's
activities?
response, as we've seen, it's very different. They're singing a very different tune from the last 2 years, no? And they're saying that they will even look at their legal options, possibly even filing cases, no? Well, that's well and good, even though it's a bit late at this point, siguro. A lot of damage has been done in the past couple of years. But really, that only sets up your initial position, and it tries to protect as well, finally, yung legal position natin, which is that we have sovereignty over the shoal and nothing should be happening there without our consent or permission. So, but that is only your legal position and your opening position for negotiation. So hopefully, after this strong statement, the government will be serious.
Strong statements issued lately because of this giant clam harvesting.
Yes, hopefully now they will follow up with strong negotiation sana. no? And to try to do something to at least stop this very destructive practice there.
So, are you aware of any follow-up activities apart from lodging this? Note verbal lang ba?
The
Or,
note verbals, yes.
Okay.
Wala pa namang direct with China. I know that internally there have been a lot of discussion. Of course, they naturally have to look at their options. But I think the next thing we need to look out for now is this upcoming meeting between President Duterte and President Xi, because that would be the opportunity to raise this matter, and if there is any chance of actually getting something done, no, and the two sides actually agreeing to something, then that meeting should be it.
There's upcoming meeting in Beijing for the Belt and Road Initiative.
Yes.
Are you confident that the President will raise this in the face of President Xi Jinping?
Well, let's just put it this way. I have rather low expectations given his record before, no? And if ever they do discuss it, again, low expectations on outcome, because the problem is that even President Duterte himself has sort of portrayed the Philippines as always having a very weak hand, no? And even up to now, no, he keeps he's still saying that, no. So it's very hard to get a concession when you yourself tell your own people that you're very weak.
Okay, the president is the principal diplomat, is the primary diplomat of the land. So he makes he makes and influences our foreign policies.
Yes.
So what about the DFA? Do you have any contacts
Well, I think
with
within
people
the
in the
DFA, I'm glad that there are really still people there who are very professional and really trying to do what they can, no? And even under the previous years, they really were trying to do what they can, no? So I think they've done their job to provide the appropriate input, especially to the leadership. But it's not the leadership's ball, bale. So it has to be the leadership that takes it to President Xi, that takes it to the Chinese Foreign Minister to make the case that, look, this cannot continue. This kind of practice that your Coast Guard is guarding over, is allowing to continue in Scarborough, simply cannot continue.
What about the other stakeholders who should be, who should be urging the president to make a more, more active, a stronger stand on this one?
Well, I think for all the other stakeholders, they should rally together to get the president to really take a strong stand. No? It's not just those people who fish in Scarborough, but also even the environmentalists. No? Those who are concerned about the trajectory of Philippine-China relations, those who are concerned about, our future as a country. Because this is a very good example, a really very vivid example of how the areas that we supposedly have disputes over, that we are supposed to be negotiating on, are already being taken away from us before these talks even produce something substantial. No? So the areas are already being destroyed. What are we going to be negotiating about in the next couple of years? Kung ganon.
Kumbaga sa Tagalog, sabi nila aanin pa ang damo kung patay na yung kabayo. So,
hindi lang patay, kinain pat.
So all the stakeholders should really take a more active stand on this and urge the president to be more, to be stronger in negotiating with the Chinese government.
And of course, I hope na this is not just because of the coming election, no? Because this really requires a much longer time.
Okay, related to this topic of the giant clams harvesting in the Scarborough Shoal, is the case filed by former Secretary of Foreign Affairs Albert Del Rosario and former Ombudsman Morales before the ICC, International Criminal Court. And it seems that some leaders just laughed this off. So what can you say about this? Does this have any teeth in the first place?
Well, in the first place, the fact that these events are still happening on Scarborough tends to reinforce the claim of Secretary Del Rosario and Ombudsman Morales that China has been deliberately taking actions that really impact on so many people, particularly our fishermen, and deprive them of their livelihood. No? So that's one. On its chances, of course, there's been a lot of discussions, but after seeing all the sides and looking into the record of the ICC, we could say at least that they do have a chance with respect to the prosecutor, because the prosecutor has indicated interest in prosecuting crimes that in which the environment, destruction of the environment is made use of to perpetrate the so-called crimes against humanity. So maybe there might be a chance there.
Are you aware of any cases that has been deliberated by the ICC on a similar nature
Wala pa
of the
naman.
environment?
No.
So this may be a first
Yeah,
for,
this might
the
become
ICC.
a first, no? And that's because of that. There's that chance na maybe the prosecutor will try to make use of this as an example or try to push the jurisprudence a little bit forward.
Okay, you're from the law profession. How are the other lawyers taking all of this?
Well, there are very few international lawyers kasi sa atin, no? But of course, you have people who, especially the ones who worked in the ICC, some of them are rather hopeful, no? Other lawyers, especially those who are more used to domestic criminal law, of course, they would be sort of skeptical because of the way criminal law sort of works, no? Yung concept niya talaga. And then the others are sort of just, wait and see because this is really something completely new to them.
Okay, you're one of the most vocal advocates of the issues in the South China Sea. How do you want all of this to play out?
Well, syempre, all of this should play out in our favor. That's the hope. I'd like to see these events and these opportunities again to thresh the issues, to negotiate. No? I'd like to see them produce some kind of even just a soft, small pushback initially. No?
Are you confident?
Because really, China has really gained so much inroads into the West Philippine Sea, and we haven't been pushing
And
back.
how confident are you that we will achieve something positive out of this?
Like I said earlier, I have rather low expectations, but there's
Okay.
always cause to hope. Diba?
Okay, thank you very much,
yeah.
Professor J. Batong Bakal. Thank you very much, and catch the full length of this interview with Professor J. Batong Bakal in ASEAN in Focus Weekend Edition. In the meantime, I'm Kaloy Tabunda, and I'm in 25. Back to you, Maricar.
And that is the latest news in the Southeast Asian nations. Stay updated about the ASEAN region. I'm Maricar Velasco and I am one with 25.